Yo, what's up, aliens? So I'm sure you've seen several of the tutorials like recreating Skrillex's new Quest for Fire album, and some of them are like really good. If you haven't seen them, definitely go check them out. But I wanted to do something different with this tutorial and dive into the mind of the artist and ask why he made this choice and how he did it to inform his overall approach in the sound design for this album. So I'll be showing y'all some clips from the album and talking about my takeaways from studying them, and also talk about some of the techniques used to create some of the basses. But we'll also be going over like how to think about why these sounds were made and how to approach them and use that creative thinking in your own artistic expression. Also, I'll mention I have a new Serum preset pack that goes along with this video, uses a lot of the techniques that we go over, but I'll talk more about that later. It's called Signs of Life. All right, let's go take a listen. Here. So pay attention to the shape inside of span. Alright, so right away I noticed that the overall mixes have like way less highs to some of his older stuff. Let me show you some of his older. Seeing these old mixes, and I've talked about this in a couple of my other tutorials, it's got like the sub bass, and then it dips down, and then it comes back up, and then the average height of the lows equals the average height of the highs here. And this is the case with a lot of the screechy, aggressive dubstep that he used to make. But in this new album, it's a more rounded top end and a lot more low mid frequency content. Like look at that, there's so much more of this information between 100 and 300 hertz, and then generally there's like a little bit of a dip around 400 and then it goes back up, but then the sub is substantially higher than the overall height of the highs. I think the loudest track out of this album in terms of the highs is actually the Too Bizarre with that really top, that high-end like hi-hat shuffle. And you can see just like the overall spread, it's just a lot more even, with the lowest point again being around that 400 hertz point. So he's using a lot of FM basses and then like percussive elements that don't have a lot of high end in them as like the main drop sounds. And I think this is a really creative limitation because it allows you to really hone in the sonic palette to a less screechy high end. And I think why he would go about doing this is that I had read that his mother passed away some years ago before COVID, and then COVID hit, and I just imagine just dealing with all those emotions, and it seems like he's really spent that time to like channel those emotions into his heart and just into his art and just express himself through that. Just I can't imagine just the pain that he might have gone through. And so thinking about that, like, you know, the lyrics to the beginning lyrics to both albums are "Please don't leave me like this." And so when I put that in context with like his mother passing away, it's just gives me a shudder of emotion. And I don't know, I really connect to that. Also, I think why is it that he's moving away from these screechy sounds is that a lot of modern dubstep is like dominated by aggressive and brutal basses. And so maybe in order to stand out and do something different, he went the opposite direction than just doing more aggressive and screechy noises, is to go and do something a bit more minimal, something that you can, that has less high end to it. And so I think with this, if we use that as like a seed of intention, you can see why he chose to go this path. And with that creative limitation, it actually can allow us to expand our creative palette in this interesting way and express ourselves in a new way. So I'm going to show you some of the basses that I made. Some of them are recreations, some of them are just me inspired by using mostly sine waves. So we'll give a listen to some. And then some of the percussive elements. And then just some other sine wave based. You know what that one's from. Now let's think of it from a scientific perspective. What waveforms have less high frequency content? Sine waves. So sine waves are just a single frequency, so there's naturally less harmonic content. So what can we do with sine waves to creatively alter them? Well, we can use frequency modulation between two sine waves. We can change the pitch of the sine wave, whether it be through the octave, the semitone, or the pitch bend. We could add noise with the sine tone. We could compress the sine tone. We can distort it. We can filter it. We can resample it. We can change the harmonic content through using things like sync or inside of Serum's waveform editor. We can layer it, or we can add effects. And so there's actually a lot of options here. And I'm going to show you all a couple of different ways of combining these ideas into a really creative outcome. So let's try to combine some of the techniques from that list that we went over. So here we've got like a sub bass that's going directly out. We've got two sine tones here. We've got some noise. We've got a filter going on. We've got distortion. We've got some of the effects with the flanger, compression, EQ. And so we've combined a bunch of these effects. And then also here in this wavetable position, you can see that it morphs between two things. So this is one of my favorite things I've been doing when making this is I'm going to lower the grid size here down to 1, and then I'm just going to choose a sine tone here. Let's get this down to 1 as well. And we're going to choose a sine tone, click there, boom, sine tone. And now what we can do is we can add in harmonics again. And each one of these just adds in a unique harmonic, and we'll maybe add some noise there. And now what we can do is we can hit morph and then crossfade. And now what it'll do is it'll create this smooth transition between one wavetable to the other one. And so we can then put the LFO on the wavetable position, put it on envelope. I'm going to put it over 2 bars. I'm also going to increase the sync a little bit to give it a little bit more grit. And then this filter here, the French one, it just adds some interesting tonality to it. And then again, this interesting shape here. It's not just your typical average triangle or sawtooth kind of shape, but it's got, and also it has, you see it's got a little bit of space there at the end. That way it gives each wub its unique space. So all together. Yeah, and also we're increasing the FM from 29 up to 19. I think really the sweet spot for FM is between 20% and 50%. Anything beyond 50, it just becomes a little bit too noisy, and anything below it just doesn't really bring out much tonality. So yeah, between 20 and 50 I think is in a really good space for FM, and you can fine tune it within that space. And then again, the noise oscillators added on there give like some top in information, and then the direct out sub, so that way we're not like distorting the sub as well in there. So here's another FM style bass. Again, you can see we're using 2 sine waves, but now with this one we're playing around with the octave amount. And also I recommend checking out the semitone and fine tune amounts. And then here we've got the LFO again on not just a typical shape there, and it's controlling the FM amount, it's controlling the filter cutoff, and I guess also it's controlling, I like to do this on the, see how it's just boosting the highs there in the EQ. And then this one is also on the back and forth instead of just, I don't know, I think it's got a little bit more interesting movement that way. And you can see here with, if we change these, get a lot of interesting variations that way. Also, this chorus actually does quite a bit. I think this is just the preset, this the standard chorus. I just turned it to 50% and adds a lot of interesting dimension to it. And again, this distortion really works when you have like high-end frequency content. So if we, doing too much distortion just sort of doesn't sound very good. So backing off, so like doing it and then backing off and finding that sweet spot. Now here's another example. This actually is an example of from Ratata, the layering. So if we were to go and listen to the original, if we look at it in spectrum, there's an 808 on there. It's got that the upper harmonic, but then there's this information right here. And if we then EQ off the low end, we can more accurately see the harmonics that are being used. And it's mostly these two right here. If we, because this one I think is more of the vocal thing. So what do we got on there? So in the top left there, you can see that this C is around 255 hertz. So what I'll then do is when I'm recreating the sound, I will actually watch this through span, which is a free plugin, by the way. Definitely go get it if you don't have it. And we can see here that is a C at negative 50 cents or so right there. And then we can add in that upper harmonic. And then I added a filter. Give it a little bit of a shape and then a sub there. So then you could layer this in with that 808. And I think he does that a lot, where he'll have like a sub layer and then like a mid top layer, and they'll both be doing some interesting movement. And so it sounds like it's this hyper complex thing when it's just rather two simple things just coming together to create a more full sound. And then, yeah, I'm compressing it ever so slightly, but it's more in that filter movement, which you can see here, the mix is not all the way up. It's more going to that like 70% right there. Without it, it just sort of da da da, and then this is wah 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 wah. It's like those subtle little things I think add up to create a more interesting emotional sound, which I think was like the entire direction of this album was based around emotions and how to evoke them. And now with these percussive sounds, a lot of these are based around sine waves as well, in noise. You can see here it's almost like an 808 tom kind of sound, and you can see here a lot of drums have a lot of like pitch bending to them. So I've put this LFO2 here on the coarse pitch, both of these things, and then you can see I've raised it up to get a little bit of that attack, but then you see I haven't gone all the way down. I've just raised it up ever so slightly, so that way it's got the pitch bend, and then it's also got this high resonance and that movement there. I just think all these things combined together just add more character and realism to the drum sounds when you're synthesizing them. Again, that distortion around that sweet spot around 60 some odd percent did it for here as well. Now it sounds like this. We've got like a sub bass layer there that's being controlled. We've got these like really short envelopes that are like 70 some odd 254 milliseconds. So it's just like a click there, and then I've got the direct out kick. But then it's this higher pitched tonality and it's going through a bandpass filter. And now when you compress it, I think it just gives it such a unique character. And also it's really these playing around with the octave. Playing around with the octave, the filter, cutoff position, and how you compress and distort it and filter it afterward. I think all those things sort of build up to this interesting sound. So with this one right here, this one's pretty wild. So I've just got like a sub going directly out, and then I've got this sound of a wooden dowel being drilled into styrofoam that's creating, and it's like slowly going up in pitch there, and then that's being comb filtered and then compressed quite a bit there, but just along with the sub, it just, so this is something that I saw that he was doing, is just taking like a sine sub and then adding a sample over it, having the level of the sample being volume automated, so that way it turns whatever sample it is into like a percussive element with the envelopes or the LFOs. We could go through just some of these miscellaneous ones. That one's really good, actually. And you can see how you can create all sorts of different variations off of these techniques. There's a lot of FMing, but I think a lot of people sort of feel like they have to use FM synthesis to like get some of these sounds, and you really don't. It's all about just like the combination of the overtones that you're doing and then filtering them in an interesting way. So like for this sample, we'll turn off everything here. So we've turned up the unison a bunch, and it's a sine tone, and we've added in just a little sync to add in more high frequency content, because it almost makes it like a saw wave there. But then we can then filter it out and then just add in that, add in the envelope onto the cutoff position, you know, just like any other pluck, and just finding a really pleasing little combination of the cutoff filter and its positioning. Or maybe add in, make it a fifth, you know, make it a power chord. There we go. And you can see here, this sound doesn't have very much high frequency content. You know, most of it's that low mid content again. And then this one is one of my favorite examples of just going into the wavetable editor. And look at this. All I've done is raise up a couple different sine tones in here, and then we've distorted it. So there's a couple different ways you can take sine tones, add distortion, or adding sync to add in more upper harmonics, and then using filters to remove those upper harmonics, or you can just choose the harmonics that you want, you know, and stick with like a really low kind of tone. There it is without the distortion. Let's actually look at that. In exactly the tones that we want there. And then just to add back in that distortion, we can see it just adds a little bit more interesting frequency content there. And then we could even curve off those things down there. So how did I do this? Yep, just raised it up. Here we can select a new one. Oh, that one right there is pretty cool. And then these right here will change the phase of that particular sine tone. But you can see if you have a bunch, it becomes a little too harsh, and also it'll lower your fundamental sine tone right here. I want to make sure that's pretty strong in order to get that bass. And then again, what I've done is I've created two of those, and then again did the morph crossfade, so that way I can then come down here to the wavetable and shift between those things just to get different tonalities. This is also a great way to like create subs. Is we'll just go in here to the editor, and we'll actually just add in that upper harmonic, and we can see exactly what harmonics. Lower that back down, and there we go. That's almost the if we just added in a little bit of a pitch bend, the envelope there. And then that right there is the 808 from Ratata. It's got that upper harmonic right there. But then we can go in and just even carefully craft a couple other harmonics. That sounds nice and warm. I usually don't like to do this second harmonic here, because that just like muddies up the low end, and yeah, I just like want to have like a really strong clean thing, so I usually go with the first and third harmonics. So I hope y'all learned something from this, and if you want to support me, I'll be dropping the pack of 60 Serum presets. It's called Signs of Life. It includes the sounds that we just covered and a bunch of other ones that were sort of inspired by this album and these techniques, and you can get them on my Gumroad via the link below in the section down there. Also, I was planning to make a whole nother section of this video where I cover the emotional and musical qualities of this album and how I thought he was able to achieve some of those results, and like the thinking behind how to evoke emotions through sound. But this video became too long, and I wanted to focus it around the sine tone and percussive like sound design. But if you're interested in learning more about that emotional approach, let me know in the comments. And oh yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and go check out the pack. And I hope to see y'all at a show of mine coming up soon, and I will see you in the future. Oi, peace aliens.